Welcome to episode 323 of the Game Deflators podcast. My name's John, and I'm joined by Ryan.
Hey, everybody, here at the Game Deflators podcast, we like to talk about games we've recently picked up, games we're currently playing, and we give the orders this time in this week's Inflation Deflation Challenge.
So we decided to play some Halo Wars on the Xbox 360, not the Xbox One version. I don't know if you did that at all.
I did play the definitive edition that is on Game Pass on my Series S. So
Which is the version that's on Xbox One.
okay.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe a little bit of difference here or there, but I mean, hey, it's a great way to kick off our month of RTSs. So we'll be pointing and clicking, except without mice, basically all month.
Yeah. I mean, this to me is one type of genre that doesn't belong on consoles. So it'll be exciting to see like the differences between these games and whether or
Yeah.
not we think that they actually do belong.
hmm
So that'll be something we'll talk about later in our inflation deflation. But first, Ryan, tell us what we're going to be learning about today.
So this week we wrapped up my little campaign, so we'll talk about that and how you should maybe build your own. Then Xbox is bringing its biggest and best to a PlayStation near you. And look at why one of the and we look at why one of the richest, most powerful men is lying about his gaming credentials. And then finally, we'll close out with that Halo Wars inflation deflation.
So you can find all of this content and all older content on the GameDeflators.com. You can also find us on social media at Game Deflators on X, at The Game Deflators on Instagram, Facebook, Threads, and Blue Sky. Got all of them there. You can also find us on YouTube. So go ahead and hit the little bell so you know when we are on. Like, subscribe, comment on there. And if you are listening to us on a podcast application, well, go ahead and leave us a 5-star review. And of course, like, subscribe, and all that good stuff that comes along with it.
Yeah.
So, pickups. I don't have it with me right here. I don't know where the heck it went. So I'm assuming I put it. Oh, you know what? I put it upstairs because I thought that I had already. It's in the game collection already. Fantasian Neo Dimension. So I went ahead and picked up a copy of that. Very exciting. So it came in early for me. I ordered it off Amazon and had a nice, new copy, which I did open and look through it and everything and put on the shelf until I can get to playing it. But yeah, pretty excited. It's
Do you
supposed to
always
be
do that? Like, I
what?
used to be the kind of person, if I bought a game and I didn't play it, I left it in the wrapper, and it would always bother people.
Most of my games that are new like that are in the wrapper. So I have whatever games I bought during Christmas time are actually upstairs in wrapper. This
And I
one
mean,
I
they
just
don't have books in them anymore or
no, but
anything.
I wanted to see the disc art and everything, and also just was loose on the inside, so I just
Mhm.
wanted to get that snap back in there. So that was my pickup for the week. I also had some, or actually not my only pickup. I had some Magic the Gathering cards. So Rob came over, and he and I were doing a little bit of drafting of foundations. So that was a pretty cool set. I got a Temporal Manipulation was one card that I got. Tiny Bones, I think, was the other guy, which was disgusting in that type of limited setting because we played with Joel as well and did some 3-player games and a
Yeah.
couple other cards. Nothing super crazy, but it was more so like the fun aspect of it. So we did end up playing several games, and I'll tell you the most hilarious moment for me was Rob and I both had that Tiny Bones card, right? Which allowed us to have our opponent discard a card. It enters a graveyard, and then they put like a flash counter on it, and then that, or a stash counter, and then that stash counter says can be used at another time. Well, so we read the nice fine print on the card, and it was like, okay, yeah, it gets discarded, hits the graveyard, exiled with a stash counter on it. Well, the Tiny Bones card says any card that does not belong to you, the stash counter, you can go ahead and play it. Well, so Joel was the one that, Rob hit him with the Tiny Bones, made him discard a Day of Judgment. And Rob's board is completely like, it was huge at that point. He's like, well, I guess we're not going to play that card. Completely forgot I also had my Tiny Bones guy on the field. And so I was like, Rob, you might want to read that fine print. I'm going to blow up the field. He's like, wait, you can't. I'm like, no, it's a stash counter. And my
Yeah.
card allows me to play stash counter. So yeah,
What's
bye
good for the
bye.
tiny bones is good for the tiny bones.
Yeah. So I'm like, bye to your entire board, Rob. And he's like, oh, well, damn. So we wipe everything. And meanwhile, keep in mind, like, Joel was sitting at 16 health. Rob was at like 9 health. I was at like 4 HP at that point. And I ended up finding a life gain or a lifelink creature out, like top decked it. So I'm like, all right, cool. I'm going to play this. And next turn, I'm like, all right, I'm swinging for 3. Oh, look, I can make a copy of that creature. And I forget what I think it was Rite of Replication. So I went ahead and made a copy of it. So I'm swinging of like 2 life links every turn, got myself back up to 20 plus health, and just depleted them completely. So it was pretty fun doing that, and had a lot of fun with that set in general. At one point, I did play that temporal manipulation and took an extra turn. So I laid out like a big nasty creature, took my second turn, swung out, and then killed whatever amount of creatures on Rob's side. So it was a good time. And then the other game that I'm still playing is Plague Tale Requiem. So I didn't get super far this week because I started watching the Rising of the Shield Hero on
Oh
Netflix,
yeah.
that anime. Yeah, which is pretty good. I'm actually liking it. So that's kind of eating away at gaming time. There's only so much gaming time I have, and apparently anime is also top of my list nowadays. So been watching that, but I did play a little bit of Plague Tale earlier in the week and got to a point where we took a boat and we were heading off to an island where apparently there is a cure for Hugo and his whole summon rats everywhere situation. So we'll see how that progresses.
Situation.
His situation, yeah. So we'll see how that goes. But
Oh, don't mind my brother. He's got a little bit of a situation going on.
yeah, well, dude. So like every time they're like, "Oh, like you have your brother," and she's like, "Oh, we're gonna find a cure for him. He's just sick. Like it's all okay." And it's like, no, it's not okay. The dude like has rats following him
He's
that
the
are
portal of death.
they're like toppling entire cities with rats and death. Like that's not a my brother's okay. And people are like, oh well, Hugo needs to die or whatever. She's like, no, you can't kill my brother. It's like dude, he's responsible for the deaths of thousands. Like he is not okay right now.
Right?
So yeah, yeah, I'm gonna dive into that a little later this week and see how it goes.
Noise. So I had a couple of pickups sort of this week. Actually, one real legit pickup. I went to GOG and I got myself a copy of Diablo 1.
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure it's on their list. GOG has like a list of games that they're going to like curate forever. Basically, they're going to make sure moving forward that those games always have like a updated version that can be downloaded and used on like modern hardware or whatever. So they're going to like preserve games indefinitely, at least on like a short list. So I think this is one of those. So I felt pretty good about buying it there. Or, even if it isn't on that list, maybe it'll get expanded to include that at some point. But I downloaded a copy of Diablo 1, and through some magic power of people smarter than me on the internet, uh, in the Vita homebrew software, there is a program you can download called Devolution X, which is basically converts the PC version to work in kind of like a better way in some situations on the Vita. So it makes it a really fun kind of way to play Diablo 1. I have very fond memories of playing Diablo 1 on the PS1 a long time ago with my friend. It blew my mind because the game, unlike modern Diablo, where, once you run through a level, everything just kind of regenerates or is randomized or whatever, and you can just run through it again. Basically, in that game, you can like save the game or you can like save your character and just load your character into a new instance of the game to continue running through the dungeons over and over again to build yourself up, get loot, all that stuff. I mean, it's definitely not as complex as later Diablos and action RPGs, but I found it to be pretty fun and I was having a good time with that for a couple of days. And then I was like, what other like action RPGs are there like this? And there's not really many on console that I would be able to play on the Vita, particularly. Like nothing. There was one called oh, what was it called? Like Mana Stone or something like that. I can't remember the name of it, but there was some other action RPG that was like on the PS1 that came out a few years later that was supposed to be pretty okay, but it didn't look like something I wanted to get into. So I was like, what else is on here that's like an action game?
Oh,
Like maybe I want to
is it Darkstone?
Darkstone. That's
Yeah,
exactly what it is. Darkstone.
yeah.
Because I kept getting it confused with Dark Cloud, and I was like, no, that's like an RPG on the PS2
Technically an action RPG.
or Power Stone. Like there's so many games that could almost be that I
That
know
one is
about
not an
also.
RPG.
Yeah. So I went kind of the total opposite direction. I did find like a different like action RPG to play, but not in that same kind of like, Diablo CRPG style. I got into Gundam Breaker 3 on the Vita,
Interesting.
which is absolutely awesome. It is one of these games where you build a custom Gunpla. You're fighting like just other Gunpla kits. Like literally, some of the bosses just drop down in a Gunpla box that opens up, and it's all basically like Gunpla has this whole genre where um kids build Gunpla and then they go into these virtual machines and then they fight their Gunpla in these like elaborate VR spaces and things. So it's like your character is the newbie to this like rookie team who like the spunky daughter's like kind of the girl that like ropes you into the team, and her dad owns like the Gunpla shop, and they're on hard times, but like you're this like ace pilot who can awaken the power of the Gunpla and kick everybody's ass. So I've had a fun time going through there. I built a couple things. I started off building like a melee focus like dual saber character, um and then now I'm trying more of like a ranged build instead. It has a lot of components. So like every Gundam has like head, body, legs, arms, backpack, melee weapon, and long range weapons. And then there's like optional parts that you can put on, special moves that you can equip. The special moves and things may be based on like you need the Shining Gundam arm to be able to use the Shining Finger attack. But once you've used that attack enough, you can unlock its potential and then you can use it regardless of having that part equipped. So that allows you to kind of like, further make customization and stuff. So I've been having a lot of fun running through that. It did run like garbage. I had the like frame counter up in the corner, and when I was doing like the double melee build and I had like swords spinning around me, I had like these extra things like floating around doing damage plus all the others, because there's probably like between like 7 and 15 units on screen at a time depending on how busy things are. So it was chugging like 14, 12 frames the second once it started to get in there. And I was like, man, is there something I can do for this? So I did my first looking into and overclocking. I've never done that on any system that I've hacked before. It took a bit of doing. Everything with the Vita or whenever you like hack any kind of system, unless you're doing it all the time, like if you do it like I do, where you just kind of get in, set it up, and then probably don't touch it for like another 6 or 7 months, you kind of have to relearn some of the things. It's like, oh, I deleted WinSCP. That's why I had that program on here so that I could FTP transfer things over to my Vita, and like looking up forum things and remembering, oh yeah, the Vita internal browser can access the camera to scan a QR code to initiate a download so that you don't have to transfer files from your computer to your system. You can do it all just on system by like scanning something on your phone. But I needed to like open up and I needed to put something else onto my system to allow me to be able to do that. It was a whole thing. It took me a few hours with both the Diablo and getting, I can't even remember the name of the program. I think it's PSV Shell
Hmm.
is the overclocking software. But it's kind of fun to mess around with this stuff. If you guys have like, an older console, like a handheld, like definitely the Vita is a great one to do, especially since it has like, you could just go to a website, hit one button on the console, and it'll execute and do everything. You don't have to have a PC to do the majority of it.
Yeah.
But it can really open up a lot of stuff. If these consoles aren't supported anymore, just don't connect to PSN. There's not servers up for those games anyways that you're going to be able to access. So you can have a lot of fun, and there's a lot of interesting stuff out there to play and check out. So I've kind of been messing around with that. I've got Metal Gear Solid on my Vita already, and that's kind of where I'm probably planning on playing that. I
Hmm.
mean, I do love my tiny PS1. Where is it? Somewhere over here.
Oh yeah, the mini.
Yeah, I like that PSX a lot with the little screen. That's always super fun, but it's just way easier to just hold a thing in my hand that has a portable battery than to have to plug that in and have a controller plugged in. And
Yeah, totally get you.
so that's what I've been doing this week.
Nice. Well, I'm hoping to dive into my inflation deflation here pretty soon as well, but we'll see. Um, I might be
Huh?
getting a new that I might be getting a new I might or not inflation deflation,
Uh
sorry, my new games resolution.
the new game's resolution. You just
Yeah.
confused me.
Yeah, I confused myself for a moment. I'm like, wait a second, that's wrong. No, I might be getting a new computer desk here pretty soon. So it's like one of those things of if my whole station is going to be changing up, I need to kind of consider that first before I start diving into a game.
Mhm.
Not that like it's going to take me super long, but I'd rather get my situation ready and then dive into that. So we'll see.
John, trust me, man. Just wait till November. It'll work
Nope.
out. I promise.
November. Oh no, God, no. Not on not on that game. All right. So let's go into our discussion topics today. So I was reading an article yesterday and I figured, oh, well, let me share it with Ryan. We don't have to dive into the full article here, but Derek
Oh, we're
Garcia.
diving, John.
Oh, I wasn't planning on it.
Doving will occur.
So Derek Garcia's screen ram, pretty much the title is New DM should be homebrewing campaigns, not campaign worlds. And so what he means by this is if you're a new dungeon master, your focus should be on homebrewing existing content and worlds that are already developed. So your Forgotten Realms pieces, right? Versus from scratch, sitting back and developing like a Matt Mercer and what he did for Exandria and all that stuff, right? That is super difficult. And so I kind of I see both sides of this, right? It's D&D. You should be able to have fun. You should be able to create these worlds and have fun with it on from scratch basis. But at the same time, if you're a new DM, that could be stressful because you do have to build out all of these things in advance. Your players are going to have a ton of questions that they're asking sometimes about the world and where they can get X item or what NPCs they might need to worry about. There's things like religious factions, governments, different laws that are in place within these worlds. So there's a lot of these like small intricate details that sometimes you need to have plotted out versus if you have source material that you can go based off of, all of that's been thought out for you, but you can homebrew within that. And so I take that approach as a newer DM versus creating this whole world from scratch. In the example of Strixhaven that we've been playing and we'll be getting back to pretty soon, I typically have like a homebrew story that I've developed within that campaign structure. So the world's already built out for me, but the things that I want to do in the interactions within that world and the interactions that you have with different characters, a lot of that stuff is homebrewed. So that's what his take is on it. And I kind of agree with that to an extent, right? Like if I were to join a
Well,
new
and
group,
let's rewind just a little bit. So he is kind of approaching this in the context of saying that the revised core books that they've just released for the 2025 or 2024 release of D&D 5e, he is favoring their approach to introducing DMs over the approach that the original 2014 5e books took. And those 2014 were much more that heavy world building emphasis as opposed to kind of, you know, more actionable DM advice and running campaign specific type things.
yeah. And so that's kind of I agree with that lens of getting yourself situated as a dungeon master, understanding what you're supposed to be doing, and having that like support system in place of pre-existing campaign architecture and world building so you can really focus on what's important, and that's telling a good story and having your players at the table enjoy what they're doing. And it allows you to really study what's already there versus creating and studying. So you're kind of doubling up your work in that respect. Now, if you're doing something short, like the campaign that we finished with you recently, that to me is pretty easy, right? If you're going to do like, and that might be something for new DMs to explore. Okay, I'm going to develop this world, but I'm going to take it from a stance of small 5 session campaigns and bits and parts of this world. So as I'm developing, I can kind of test it in a way, right? Test my
Mhm.
world and test the NPCs and the cities and towns and things of that nature, versus having this full fledged map and all of these regions and stuff like that. that's a lot of time. And oftentimes when you consider these like net new campaigns that are like 5e specific that come out through third parties, it's not like one person writing. It's usually a team of individuals that are getting together, brainstorming, developing different sections, and putting all of that together to create this comprehensive world.
So I've got a very different take on this. I was telling John, uh, I did not like the attitude of Mr. Garcia in this. I felt like he was being very pessimistic about some of these things. And I want to bring up a couple of points here. Um, a lot of people got very excited about D&D because of Critical Role and because of Matt Mercer's world that he made, so much so that he printed his own, campaign setting that
Yep.
you can play in Exandria now. But the thing is, you know, those creative decisions that he used to make that are a lot of the same thing to get other people excited. Like as soon as I started doing D&D, I started making worlds and building out things. And I mean, part of that is because I was listening to other creators who were creating their own worlds, and that inspired me. And a lot of people want to get into D&D because of that creativity. And definitely, if there's something that excites you about D&D, that's really where you should start, especially as a DM, because the more passion you have for what you're putting in front of your players, the better that that's going to come across usually. So like if you're very into the gods and stuff, make a campaign centered around that where nobody's going to ask about the politics. Like you don't really have to build a whole world and have all the answers. You really just need to have whatever is 1 to 2 sessions away from your player's vision. you know Whatever the local area is like where you're going to start. Players are going to have questions about the tavern that they can go into, not the capital of the country next door. So even though building a world is a much grandiose and harder to do thing, you can only do it piecemeal as needed. And a lot of world building is going to be fun for the DM, and your players are never going to care. They're going to never ask those questions anyways. And you're going to more often than not be frustrated at how can I get my characters to care about the world that I've built? Because most of the time, players, they want to show up, roll dice, and kill monsters. Their interaction with your world is the character sheet that they built, and 60% of that character sheet is killing monsters. That's the stuff that they really want to do. So whether you're using a homebrew world or a pre-built world, that is primarily for you and less so for your standard players. The other thing I think is that, when D&D started, there weren't all these pre-made worlds and there weren't all these pre-made things, and making worlds. And I mean, obviously they weren't making as elaborate worlds. They were mostly just kind of making dungeon grinds. But like that's what DMs did. Like DMs have always been in a creative position. So you can get a lot of value off of using pre-made stuff. Like usually, like John and I are very different DMs. John buys all the books, basically. I only want the books that have things in them that I can maybe kind of like take here or use there. Like I got what was the Ravenloft one?
I mean, yeah, there's a
Where's
Ravenloft
that?
one. Yeah, there's
Is that
several.
the
There's
one?
like 2 Ravenloft ones. There's the, Von
Yeah.
Richter's Guide of whatever. I think that one's,
What
focused
was
on
the actual
Ravenloft.
like campaign one?
I don't remember offhand. You're catching me off guard.
Okay, anyways, that seems cool because it's like, okay, here's a book that has like how to handle horror, how to handle like kind of all these things that aren't just like a generic fantasy thing, like getting kind of those specifics and taking them out of campaigns. Or like John did a whole Avernus campaign. Like if you don't want to run that whole Avernus campaign, but you want a really good idea of what hell's like, you could just take the parts from that and use that
It's
rather than running in the whole campaign yourself. Curse of
Curse of
Strahd.
yeah, Curse of Strahd.
Curse
Yeah,
of
and
Strahd.
like even Avernus when I ran that, I've talked about it before, a lot of the elements that I created. Avernus more specifically, I stuck to the story a little more because that was, I mean, it's a campaign, it's developed already for you, right? You're just running through that story versus
Hmm.
Strixhaven is very much like, hey, you're going to get this done in 12 sessions. There's 3 major key points per chapter that you have to hit on, and that's it, right? And if I was to go about that way, it's so streamlined that you guys get bored out of your minds so quickly because it's just a taste of the university. And there's all these other
It's like the
extracurricular
Harry
things.
Potter movies versus the books.
Yeah. There's, like, so much, like, extracurricular stuff that you could be doing and is encouraged, but the campaign story doesn't set you up for that, which is why I've brought in all the other mechanics like time traveling and characters that are, trying to destroy the school and things of that nature, kind of leaning in more so on the homebrew aspects, and then having the overall campaign structure in that 12 sessions, that's kind of my guiding point. So I do still use, like, that as, like, point A, B, and C to get to the final parts of that chapter, but I'm actively creating a number of pieces of content to flesh out that story greater, and so that way you guys are having an expanded experience in Strixhaven versus just a taste of it.
Yeah.
Oh,
I guess the last thing that I'll kind of talk about here, and I'll kind of blend this into summing up or wrapping up, my campaign that I was running for you guys there, is that when you are homebrewing, I mean, you can just always be right. Like in my homebrew world, there aren't like friendly goblins that go around and are welcome in taverns and stuff. But John wanted to be a goblin, and I was like, okay, he can be a goblin in my world at this time because I make all the decisions, and the NPCs care about what I want them to care about. So it's very easy to kind of override and help build a cohesive story with your players when you can kind of yes and everything, because there's nothing written down somewhere else that's going to contradict you and somebody's going to call you on it.
yeah, besides, who doesn't like a goblin with a saxophone and a giant purple hat?
Yeah, so we were able to get Mr. Sax Pants and the rest of the party through the end of the campaign. I don't remember exactly where we last kind of summed things up, but essentially they had gone back to Rainy the Wizard after clearing out the goblin um, infestation at some ruins. And he was able to give them a positive ID on the young man that they were seeking. And one, Thomas Kenchner, that's what it was. So they finally got positive ID on him. He had sent him up to these caverns to the north, and the players went after him. Upon entering the caverns, they found Mr. Kenchner in pieces of stone laid into a barrel. They managed to absolutely thwart my basilisk men that I created for them by creating kind of a kill zone through a tunnel and laying some traps in there and fireballing things, because that's one thing, if you're a new DM, never underestimate the power of fireball. It will ruin all of your plans. So after taking care of that, they were able to be like, hey, you know what, let's get this guy out of here. We were here to find him. We found him. Even if he's not all in one piece, he's probably worth more, bringing back, as a pile of rocks than, not at all. So they got the body out of there. They brought it back over to Rainy, and he kind of let them know what was up. He's a wizard. People come to him for adventure, and he sends them off. He doesn't know if they'll survive whatever they encounter or not. And basically, anybody who goes up and is bested by the basilisk men, he winds up adding them to his wizard's tower. That's why it has no roof, because it just kind of continues on with the legacy of all adventurers. And I just thought it was I don't know, it was an interesting idea that I came up with a while ago. I think it was you or Joel who was like, I bet the wizard's the bad guy, because in like the last 2 campaigns Ryan did, the wizard was the bad guy.
Yeah, and we both kind of made that assumption the first moment we met Rainey. We're like, yeah, he's a bad guy. Like
Yeah.
he's just sending us off to our death. And so I'm kind of curious. So if we would have continued on through that tunnel, was there a boss battle or something in there, or just more lizard men? What was the situation with that?
So originally I had planned on you guys like having to go deeper into the cavern to deal with the lizardmen, but you basically, I mean, I was trying to use numbers against you guys in this campaign because I was like, yeah, you guys can all just be level 7, whatever abilities. Here's like, some magic items to use. Like, let's just see what you guys can do. And then I built encounters and I mostly tried to go by numbers. I mean, I used the um
Creature rating.
Cadaver Collector, which was
Mhm.
like a big bad on his own, but then I gave him like advantage and all these like other spirits and stuff that he could summon. I tried to throw you guys up against 40 goblins,
That was
and
funny.
I tried to throw you guys up against like I think it was like a dozen basilisk men.
And that was with me not even in the battle that they
Yeah,
defeated them.
and
Yeah.
and that battle was probably the most decisive. I would almost say. But it just like it's one of those things where you as a DM, you can't plan for everything. So I could have had more stuff down there, but it wasn't something that I wanted to run for that long. I just kind of wanted you guys to kind of like go on these 3 adventures and kind of have the story of this wizard and kind of have like an appreciation for D&D moving forward, that you know what, maybe the reason the wizard lives outside of town and sends people to his death is because he's not this, great wizard that everybody relies on. He's just kind of a part of the world like anything else.
See, what I probably would have done a little differently than you to close this out. This would have been my DM style on it. I would have had the wizard at the end be the big bad, of course, which he technically was at the end of the day. Like he was the big bad, but it wasn't like anything crazy he was doing. He was just kind of misleading adventurers. Say, yeah, there's all of this adventure, but he had
I mean,
agreements with
the thing is,
creatures and
if you guys
such.
tried to fight him, I mean, it would have just it wouldn't have been an interesting battle. Like,
Yeah.
I felt like
Well,
that was the biggest letdown in
I
the
would have done
campaign,
it.
was I feel like the battles didn't wind up getting to where I wanted them to be, because like even though I was trying to overwhelm you guys just you were powerful enough that you could do whatever you wanted. Like I really didn't
So
have anything that was like, here's a big ass dragon.
what I would have done with Rainy specifically is he would have been a lich or some sort of like necromancer in disguise, and then he would have come out and
That wouldn't make
started.
any sense for him to be like,
Yeah,
I'm a
yes, it
lich
would.
that lives 4 miles from this town
Yes, it
and
would
doesn't do anything
because
evil.
yes, it would because you could have animated all of the pieces of stone and bone that came from all the adventurers of past that had died under his guidance to go to different areas. You could have had something built into that respect where they would have been reanimated and fought for him in a final battle in his tower. And at the conclusion of that battle, tower begins to crumble because all of the parts of this tower are comprised of adventurers that he took out or sent out to help build this tower up. Well, years and years of this tower being built up by this necromancer, lich, however you want to have it, the tower begins to crumble and we have some sort of escape to get out of it. That's how I probably would have changed it up at the end there to create a final battle.
Mhm.
It would take a little more thought than me just kind of like, this is me
No, yeah,
speaking to you directly saying,
that's
"Hey,
not
here's
bad.
yeah, here's kind of what I would have done differently." But I would probably be putting a lot more thought into that. It wouldn't just be, yeah, it's a
Yeah.
lich. Like I'd have to have a little more background to it. Like, okay, they were petrified. How does this actually work? Is it because he actually used bones for the initial structure of his tower? Like those are things that I would have to sit back and consider.
Mhm.
So that's what I probably would have done a little bit differently. But overall, I had fun, and it was probably the worst character I've ever rolled, and it was my most favorite character that I've
You had a
played,
lot of
so,
fun with your character, I
yeah.
could
Well,
tell.
I couldn't do anything with him. So, like, there was no attacking whatsoever. It was just playing music and trolling for the most part. So, alright. Well, we'll talk Strixhaven, moving forward once we, start that up. Not this coming weekend, but the following. So should have some fun there. But my first article that I had is from Game Rant, and this is insiders are revealing that major Xbox games could go multi-platform in 2025. So it's a decent list. It's got Flight Simulator, Halo, Gears of War Ultimate Edition is on there, Senua's Saga. is another that was rumored. Of course, we know that Indiana Jones will be coming over as well. I'm not going to go into the entire list here of what could be anticipated, but I'm really just kind of wanting to get your perspective, Ryan, on, do you think these are going to be successful? Like Halo, I know Halo in particular, they're talking about combining the three games, and it's supposed to be like this linear tie-in versus like three separate Halo games. It's supposed to be like one comprehensive game. I talked about this with the PlayStation 8 Dead guys a while back,
Mm.
when this was initially rumored. So, do you think something like this would be successful, or have enough people already played Halo? And has it been beaten to death? Like, has everybody that would have wanted to play Halo already played it? Has everybody that maybe wanted to play Senua's Saga already made the plunge into getting it on PC, or said, okay, I'm just going to buy it on Xbox and get an Xbox? So,
So
where do you see this?
the first thing that I want to start off with this article is that if Xbox does go like full multi-platform, I certainly want to get a big Xbox sticker like this to put on the side of my PS5 because I think it would make it look a lot cooler. And then next off, to answer your questions, yeah, dude, they're gonna make a buttload of money. You got to remember that, like, one thing that I get why they say it this way, but I think at this point we need to stop referring to Halo as a premier franchise because it's really not treated like it. The way that Halo Infinite came out and the way that nobody talks about it now, I think that the original Halo 1, 2, and 3 are Halo. Everything else that's kind of come out has been, additional stuff, but like I never hear a lot of love or remembrance for 4 or 5 or people talking about Infinite now,
Or Reach,
and or Reach or ODST
or
or
VST,
Wars or Wars 2. So
or the TV
we're
show?
yeah, or the TV show. So, I mean, if you put out the original, Master Chief Collection on PlayStation, there's definitely people that have a PS5 that have people that they play games with now that aren't the people that they played Halo with on the 360. And they would love, or, most of my friends don't have an Xbox. I'm like the only person I know that has an Xbox. Everybody else has a PlayStation. None of those people are playing Halo together anymore. If this came out, all of those people would buy it because they would all be like, hell yeah, let's run through the original trilogy again. It's been years since we've done it, or hey, we've never done it together before. Let's do it together for the first time.
And that was my mindset too with some of those games. Like, I would definitely buy Halo on the PlayStation 5 at that point.
And
And I
and
have
then
the
the
Master Chief
install
Collection.
base
What's that?
is just the install base is just bigger.
Yeah,
More people have PlayStations, so it's like with the Sacrifice,
Cinema Saga.
Senua's Saga. I mean, there's just more people that have PlayStations than have Xboxes. So obviously more people would be able to buy that game just as a base number. I mean, it's like putting anything on Switch. Like, most games are still going to come out for the original Switch and not the Switch 2 for the first couple years because 150 million people have a Switch and only 20 or 30 million people are going to have a Switch 2 for the first year. So it's like, numbers wise, you'd be dumb not to sell it to the bigger pool of people that could sell it to. And Microsoft has just kind of finally admitted that they've lost the console wars hard enough that they're going to make more money being multi-platform. Like, they're just not going to sell enough boxes and enough Game Pass subscriptions to people that own those boxes than if they just sold it to everybody that has money and a PlayStation.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, you're gonna have people that will not play on PC and they will not play on Xbox. They're just gonna play exclusively on PlayStation, or they'll just play exclusively on Nintendo. So it
Yeah.
makes complete sense. And then you have
And
some people like us who will buy multiple consoles, obviously.
some of these games, like, I don't know, it feels like, you know, like a lot of companies in the last decade, Microsoft bought their way into IP, but like Halo and Flight Simulator, yeah, those are both like Microsoft, like that's what you associate with that company. But like Senua, the new Indiana Jones game. Like, nobody's like, oh man, I'm a diehard Xbox fan because of those games. You know, it's the same way. Like, I'm sure Sony could sell Horizon to anybody that has an Xbox if people really gave that much of a shit about Horizon. Like, they've made a bunch of Horizon games, but like nobody bleeds Sony because Horizon's just really the game that pulled them in. You
Well,
know,
they've only
like,
made 3 technically, 2 Horizon games that were, like, base games, and then they had the VR version, and then if you wanna count the Lego version that's on Nintendo Switch, there's that.
yeah. So it's, but I mean, it's like, it's just, it's one of those games that's on the console, but it's not the console identity. Like, nobody thinks of them as synonymous things the way that like Mario and Nintendo, Master Chief and Xbox. I mean, most of the Sony ones that you think about aren't even like Sony. Like, I'm still the kind of person that thinks about Crash and Spyro and stuff like that, which are on all the platforms now.
Well, and technically owned by Microsoft now.
Yeah.
So,
So
yeah.
it's one of those things, like, it's all going to erode away. Like, once physical media is dead and everything's digital anyways, it's really just going to be your preferred place to get it, you know, because there's not going to be like what's proprietary about anything added about that time. Like, if you're making the game, your objective should be able to get in the hands of as many players as possible. And if it doesn't matter what kind of box you own, screw it. Everything's multi-platform now
Yeah.
because platforms don't exist, because it's all just digital and we don't own any of it anyways. Like, we're all just renting.
Well, to an extent, yeah. In the digital world, yeah, you will pretty much just be renting. Unless changes happen legislature-wise to say, "No, you actually own that piece of media." Yeah, and I think Steam has made those notices too, right? Like, you don't own the
Yeah,
license
they
to this.
updated Steam. Like, you don't, it doesn't have like a buy option or something depending on where you live now. It just like has a like, I don't know if it's just acquire license or what, but it's like you're not, they make it very clear that you're not buying anything.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well,
All right.
let's go into your piece here. I thought this was
So
pretty funny.
yeah, this is a Path of Exile 2. Fans say Elon Musk characters are clearly being boosted. This is by Paul Tassi at Forbes. Though that's not the original source that I saw it at. I saw Kriparian talking about this a few days ago, and then Charlie, or Moist Critical, Penguin Zero, whatever you want to call him. He did a React video as well. And who was the other original content creator? Let me see. I want to get this. Um, where was it? It was
Random
who's
content creator.
sorry. Should have had this together before.
I mean, it's all good. I think we can continue to talk through it.
Yeah, it was Quinn 69 TV. So, anyways, he did a video showcasing Elon Musk doing a stream. Elon Musk, you know, one of the richest guys in the world, has like super high records in like StarCraft and Diablo 4, and now in Path of Exile 2, he was ranked number 12. And this is a huge achievement. I mean, trying to get to the top, you know, 100 people in Path of Exile 2, you know, and he's number 12. This guy is no lifing it. I mean, he is, you know, nose to the grindstone, hardcore, day and night, running maps, grinding out his character. And then he goes on for a stream and obviously has no idea what he's doing. The full video does a pretty good breakdown where it shows him kind of making a bunch of basic things that just, you know, mistakes that give away that he has no idea what he's doing. He's clicking on things that you can't click on. He's looking at his character. He's like, oh, I'm level 98, but my armor is only level 62. I guess it's not really that good. And it's like, well, no, that's just like the minimum level requirement to wear that armor. It's like basically the best armor you could get. And he doesn't pick up items that normally you would just pick up. He doesn't use his potions appropriately to like maximize his damage output. There's just a lot of things that he's just pretending like he either found somebody that had an account and paid them, or from the get-go made an account and paid somebody to do this for him. But it's so weird that a guy in his position would care so much to try to just like pretend he's really good at a game that he's not playing. Like, he's meeting with the president and he's lying to a bunch of Path of Exile 2 is not even fully out. It's not even that big of a game. Like, it's gonna be amazing. I mean, it is amazing as of now already. I haven't played it. I've been really wanting to play it, but it's just nobody who doesn't play Path of Exile 2 would ever even care about this. So it's just such a weird thing to try to brag about. I don't
I
understand what this guy's deal is.
I think he's just kind of solidifying himself in that department of government efficiency, and here's why. He's being efficient with his time and hiring somebody else to do it for him, so that way he can play at a higher level. He doesn't have to go through all of the process. I
See,
mean,
and then that character died like a day or two after that original video came out or
oh really?
something. Yeah, Moist Critical talks about it in his react that like that character is now dead because it was in hardcore mode. So once you die, like you drop off the leaderboard
Oh
because your
damn.
character's gone. So it's like either the person he was paying to boost this character made a mistake, or Elon went in, had no idea what he was doing, and wasted literally hundreds of hours of somebody else's time
Hey, so
building this character for him,
if Elon's listening, if you want to pay me, I'll game for you. I have no problem with
right?
that. Like, I will continue to lie to the American people here and just go ahead and play a game for Elon. I'm down with that.
Yeah.
Whatever the pay is, I'll do it for half.
So, I mean, as many weird decisions as Elon Musk makes in his life, I mean, this is just another one. And it's it's a pretty good React video if you want to go out and check it out just to see what's happening. But it's uh it's pretty funny.
Yeah, I'll check that one out. All right, let's dive into our inflation deflation. So this is Halo Wars on the Xbox 360. You of course played the definitive edition. It was developed by Ensemble Studios, published by Microsoft Game Studios, designed by Dave Pottinger, released in February of 2009. Is that correct? Yeah, that's correct because 3 came out. I think Halo 3 came out in like 2007 or 2009. And I
It
want to say it
was
was developed
in
afterwards.
I think it was 2007 because I think I was a junior when that came out.
Hmm.
Because I remember I did a report my sophomore year, and me and somebody else were arguing about the PS3 or the Xbox 360.
Yeah. So it is a RTS game, so real time strategy. Reception is around an 8 to a 9 out of 10. Ryan, tell us what this RTS is all about.
So the UNSC Spirit of Fire vessel is fighting the Covenant and taking the battle to a planet known as Harvest. It's been a long fight with the Covenant and moving in to take a base in the North Pole. Your mission is to begin to take the fight back to them, recover your base, and try to see what they've got going on. This was my first experience with this game. I've been hearing about this game for a long time. I remember when it originally came out, I was like, huh, an RTS game on the Xbox 360 doesn't sound like it's going to be very good. And then I I never played it. But I Joel was telling us that he was like huge into this game. I've known a couple other people that have really liked this game in the past. I think I could see why. It
Yeah.
actually controls pretty well. It definitely seems like a little bit of a downgrade. Like, it's not that it's a bad looking game, but just like looking at like the intro cutscenes and stuff, it just doesn't seem like it's on that same level as like what you were doing in like Halo 2 and Halo 3. Like, it's just not as exciting and like right into the action. It's a lot more like an RTS is. It's really kind of like building you up with like some stuff, and you're not like in the thick of the action. so they don't really go overboard with like in mission cutscenes. It's really kind of all interstitial cutscenes, and during all the missions, it's just kind of voice chatter and clicking around. But it's a good looking game. Uh, as far as I got, controlled pretty well. I'm sure that later on it might get more difficult, trying to manage units and things, but there's multiple ways of selecting. You can kind of just click on a unit, you can select all your units, you can like hold down the A and it creates this enlarging circle that will encapsulate units so that you can select certain amounts. Um, it's like one button to execute a move, and you use that same button to execute an attack. Units have a secondary alternate attack that they can use. Different units have like only like regular human units can move through this barrier, and your vehicles won't be able to. So you got to kind of strategically branch off some guys to go through a barrier, take out an energy source so that you can send the rest of your units through. Uh, I didn't get that far. We only played like 45 minutes an hour of this game, but from what I saw, I actually thought it was pretty good. I actually was having a pretty good time with it, I think.
Yeah, I agree. The big thing for me was the controller. So I was reading a little bit into the development of this game. It was initially being developed by the team that was doing, I think it was Age of Mythology, or they were using the Age of Mythology engine to develop this. At least Ensemble was, and it was a situation where they were already in the middle of developing this for like a different. It was going to be a different IP altogether, and then Microsoft saw and was like, "Oh, well, let's do it Halo themed." And so they went ahead and did it as Halo themed. And the one funny thing I found with this, so you got to keep in mind, this is already being developed as an RTS for the Xbox 360, regardless of fact. But when the Bungie team got word of like what was happening with this, they were pretty upset, saying like, "Oh, well, this is just whoring out the franchise," which we can kind of see that's what's been going off Halo over the years, anyways. After Effects, so Bungie was correct in that. Um, but the game itself, like you mentioned, the controls are it. That's what's kept in mind, right? Like they wanted to make an RTS that really worked directly with the Xbox 360 controller and was going to be easy to play. And that's quite frankly what it is for an RTS. It's a very simplified version where you can even use the trigger buttons to route through your different types of units and such. So that way you could
Oh, I
select
didn't
them
even try
specifically.
that.
Yeah. So like if you hit the right trigger instead of a
It
right
just
button,
cycles
right.
to the next unit?
Yep, it'll sit on the bottom if you have, like, an infantry unit, the
Yeah.
flamethrower unit,
Okay.
a tank, whatever it may be. It's on this bottom bar, and you can just right trigger to go through it and select that specific type of a unit. And then, of course, like you mentioned, you can hold down A to be able to select a certain amount. You can call all units. You can call, just local units on that particular page. So there's that. The one thing I'm not a big fan of is it was a little too simple at times. So you start with your base in that one section, and you're like, all right, start building everything around here, doing all of my upgrades. You could theoretically find other locations to continue to get more resources to speed
But
up
they're,
your.
like, preset. It's not like
Yeah,
another RTS where it's like, you could build anywhere.
yeah. So preset little areas that you build into. So there's that. The way that the actual like enemies are set up is interesting and makes sense. So like infantry, for example, is good at shooting down. I want to say it was vehicles, and then vehicles were good at shooting down um, a different type of enemy,
I
and then
like
like
doing the run over with the vehicles and just, like,
yeah,
charging all the
yeah. So
cars through.
So like vehicles were good against infantry. Infantry was good against air units, and then air units were good against vehicles, is what it
Oh, it has, like,
was.
a rock, paper, scissors kinda system?
Yeah, it's a rock paper scissors system for the battling. There weren't a ton of units in what we were developing, at least in when I was playing. But I think it was enough to just kind of give you this feeling of an RTS, but also tie in the Halo story. And this story
I
is
like
supposed
that
to
it
be
gave you,
placed.
like, expanded, like, we got to see not the scorpion tank.
Yeah.
We got to see what was it, the bear or
Hmm.
something? So it's like it's cool to see what else, is just outside of what Master Chief is doing.
Yeah. Well, and so this story actually takes place 20 years prior to Halo Combat Evolved as well.
I thought it
Like
said it was 5 years before the Halo event.
no, from what I was reading, I mean, unless I read something different, it's supposed to be 20 years before Halo Combat Evolved. So you have
Okay.
a lot of young Spartans that are involved in this too. Um, Yeah, overall, like Ryan said, I think the music is good overall. I think it's a great looking game. It still holds up today. I threw it on an Xbox One earlier, and I felt that looked pretty nice. It controlled really nicely. You have the ability to adjust how fast it goes on the cursor to be able to, like, go over characters and move things around. So yeah, overall, I was pretty happy with it, and I bought this recently. So just specifically so we could play some Halo type stuff down the road. So I'm excited I got this. Um, Jumping into brass tacks. So a complete in box is going to run you $8.99 right now. That peaked at $13.99 in April of 2013, and it's going up right now as the overall trend. A loose copy will run you $6.60, and that peaked at $15 in March of 2013. This is, of course, peaks after the game had come out.
Yeah, I said it because the complete inbox recording on
Mhm.
there didn't start until April 2013.
Yeah.
So I just put up, what was around there because it had the loose price tracked all the way back to the beginning. So obviously a game is always going to be the highest
Mhm.
loose price the month that it releases. So
Yep.
it's not really, I don't know, helpful data in
Yeah.
the long term.
I feel you. Digital console, you can get it for 19.99, or it's included with Game Pass, and digital PC versions of Steam would be 19.99 as well. So I think, given the backwards compatibility that is tied to Xbox consoles, if you were playing it on there, a complete in box for $9, no brainer, dude. Like, I think this is absolutely worth that.
And you know what? At this rate, you might be able to get it in some kind of like extended Halo collection on the PS5 in a couple years.
Maybe, maybe,
So this could be still the best price you could get it at, in the future.
yeah.
If they
So
re-release it, it's not going to be cheaper.
I would say pricing wise, this is probably deflated for me. I think if you
Yeah.
found it for $10 complete in box, even if you found it $15 complete in box, you wouldn't be doing yourself a disservice. I think it's worth it for that price point.
The fact that it has like an 8 to 9 out of 10, which I didn't realize it had that good of a reception, plus the, anecdotes of people that I know that have played it and had a lot of fun with it, I would definitely say that this game is, at least worth it, at the price that it's at now. Um Complete in box 8.99. I mean, maybe that is deflated. Like anything under $10 complete in box that comes with like an actual game manual. I mean, that sounds worth it to me in this day and age.
Yeah, just the book alone, right?
Yeah, just
So
because it's got like an actual book in it. I mean, that's like $3 right there.
yeah, I want to say I paid $10 for it, so I actually paid over the 8.99 estimate that we have here.
So what do you want to say? Deflated or just right?
Yeah, I think it's deflated for sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sounds good.
yeah. All right, so our next game that we're gonna play is Red Alert, or
Command and Conquer
it
Red
might just
Alert on the
yeah, Command and
PS1.
Conquer Red Alert, yeah. So that'll be some fun. That is actually my first introduction to RTS,
I'm going to
that
try
game.
that on the Vita too.
Oh god. Have fun with that, dude.
Yeah, I
That's
know.
gonna be interesting, yeah. I don't think it has analog, support. I think it's only the D-pad, if I
Okay.
recall. Yeah. So that'll be fun. Alright, well, until next week, this has been episode 220, or no,
Nope.
323. 323.
Off by 100
I'm
episodes,
I'm
John.
like, "Wait a second, what's going on?" Yeah, it's been episode 323 of the Game Deflators podcast. My name's John,
I'm Ryan.
and thanks for listening.